yeah, we decided to move home because he wanted to have kids, and we're always like, do you ever just think that we could be in Ibiza this week and not be here?
Not here.
And they're like crying and pulling each other's hair, and he's like, not as much as you do.
Why do you parent like that?
This episode is sponsored by Bear and Moo, and we're so grateful to have them on board. They're a mum-owned Kiwi business supporting this mum-created podcast, which feels like such a beautiful friendship. Bear and Moo is one of my go-to online stores for all things baby and kid. From cloth nappies to toys, books, and the everyday essentials, everything they stock is great quality and mindfully sourced. So you know it's only the best for your wee bebes. We especially love their Honey Sticks bath crayons. We've got a tin at home, one at the in-laws, and one at the batch. Yes, we have 3 tins. And ever since, bath time has become something our toddler actually runs to, which is nice. Bear and Moo have kindly provided Why Do You Parent Like That listeners with a 10% discount on any non-sale items. Use the code WDYPLT10 at checkout. That's WDYPLT10 at checkout to get a 10% discount. Thank you, Bear and Moo. We love you. Welcome to Why Do You Parent Like That, the podcast with one set of questions and 1 million ways to parent. Each week, I chat with a different guest and ask them the same 5 parenting questions. It's all about celebrating the many weird, wonderful, and totally valid ways people raise their kids. If you like what you hear, hit follow and share it with a parent in your life, or 5, or your whole mum group chat, or your multiple mum group chats. I know you, I see you, I won't stop you. We are so glad you're here. This week, I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Sonya Pryor, aka the Bebe Namer, and I have definitely met my match when it comes to someone who can yap as much as I can. This episode was almost twice as long originally, yes, seriously, so yes, a lot hit the cutting room floor, but don't worry, I kept all the good stuff in. And who knows, maybe one day I'll post some of the chaotic behind the scenes, but that's for another day. Sonya is warm, funny, honest, and truly feels like your baby naming bestie. I'm so glad to have her here this week. You are going to love her. Just as a side note, this episode mentions a difficult birth, hyperemesis, postpartum hemorrhage, abnormal pregnancy scans, mental health, and eating disorders. If any of those topics aren't sitting right for you to listen to right now, please take care and we'll catch you next time. Without further ado, here is our episode with Sonya Pryor, aka the Baby Namer.
Why do you parent like that?
My guest today has one of the most fun and frankly most high stakes jobs in the parenting world. Sonya Pryor, aka the Baby Namer, is a baby name consultant. Yes, that's a job. And yes, it's as brilliant and surprisingly intense as it sounds, because naming a human being, one who might be anything from an accountant to a folk singer to a plumber, is no small task. With a background in linguistics and a brain full of name magic, Sonya helps parents untangle the emotional tangle that is baby naming, from family politics to generational trauma, from the group chat vetoes to the name that's just a bit too cool for a toddler. She's like a fairy godmother for names, if fairy godmothers were also wildly smart, slightly savage after a glass of wine, and had a spreadsheet for every scenario. I first stumbled across her work when I was pregnant with my second baby, and so deeply frustrated at trying to name a child with my husband that I basically forced Sonya to become my friend. And Rita, she did! And thank God, because having her in my corner felt like the most validating, hilarious, and useful baby naming lifeline I didn't know I needed. In fact, the only reason my daughter, Max, is named Max is because Sonya opened my eyes to the glorious world of cool boy names for girls, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. She's clever, sassy, a baby naming genius, and one of my favourite follows on the internet. So Sonya Pryor, welcome to Why Do You Parent Like That?
Oh my word, I feel like I'm on Desert Island Discs with that intro, which is my dream. Honestly, I'm gonna play that to my partner and be like, these are the compliments I ask for when I say it's compliment time. Oh my
Yes,
God.
absolutely. No, I think you're my most recommended follow that I tell people about on the internet. You are I just cannot get enough of your content. So,
Oh my God, I am incredibly flawed, bold, and so happy to be that person for you. You have definitely become my pseudo online friend, even though we are literally neighbours. So
Yes.
I feel
So
like
close to each
we're
other.
gonna cross that bridge, obviously.
Yeah,
We'll take the URL to IRL.
there will
and
be a point where we meet face to face and it will be beautiful.
It'll be like Love is Blind, but online
Yes.
friends
Yes, from behind the wall, but behind the screen.
behind the screen. We can start a new thing.
Perfect. Yeah, beautiful. But yes, you are my most recommended follow on the internet because I am obsessed with names. I think that
Yes.
baby names are so interesting. And actually, when I was a child social worker, one of the questions I would ask a child to get to know them and their family is like, why did your parents give you your name?
Oh.
Yeah, because it can tell you so much about like their
Yeah.
family life, their culture, their legacy, their heritage, how connected they are to their ancestors, like all that kind of stuff. And I just don't think people give enough time to like the bigger meaning that the names that we carry with us have.
Totally.
And so it's very exciting to like see the sort of like baby naming space growing for sure.
I know,
And
it's
like
wild.
my husband, Sonya, got so many of my venting messages when we were trying to name our second baby because my husband just vetoes, I think, every name on the planet.
Yeah.
Like it's a miracle that Max is named because we just
You just
like
gotta wear them down sometimes.
Yeah,
which
it
is
truly
like not
was
what I
like
should say.
no.
For a name consultant. But like even I was saying to my partner, I was talking about the months as names because our daughter's middle name is literally June.
Yes.
And I was like, oh yeah, so June's obviously your favourite calendar month as a name. He was like, absolutely not. I was like, it's our daughter's name. What do you want about it? He's like, I just don't care what you throw in the middle. And I was like, oh, okay, fantastic.
Okay, great.
I was like, what would be your favourite calendar month name then? He was like, thought it would be January. And I was floored. I was like, oh my God, whoa, hello. Who is this man? And I was like, so if I floated January, would you be like, yeah, cool? He was like, absolutely not. You've just given me specific parameters. And I was like, oh, okay, you're still incredibly boring.
Right.
Fantastic to know. But I
You're
was like,
not exciting at all.
no, I just think that's the thing with men. Like, they can compartmentalize it and then it's like real life and then everything
Yeah.
else. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we can be those people. We can
I
have a
know.
January. Like,
I
give me
know.
January. Like, you can be
Yes.
Jan if you really wanted to be boring. That's fine. But
Baby
give me
Jan.
January. Yeah, bring back Jan.
I know. It's like I loved the name Joni. You know how into Joni I was. I
love Joni.
I was gunning for it, and he was just like, no, not baby Joan. Joan's a grandma's. Like, he just could not. And I was like, no, but Joan doesn't have to be a grandma. Joan could be a baby if we name a baby Joan.
Yes.
And he just like could not
get aboard. Yeah.
No. So tell me how you started the baby name.
Okay. So I have loved baby names like so many, and I hate to gender it. So many young girls. For a long time, I guess because you were playing with dollies and you named them all, and that was like, I look back on all of my dollies and they had the boringest names, which is really upsetting. But I bought a baby naming book when I was like 11 from my local supermarket. I actually still have it and still use it. And I was like, it's like a relic. But realizing that I've loved baby names for that long, I was like, oh, and I'm still interested in it. And then I was on TikTok in the UK. I think living in the UK and moving away from New Zealand gave me a sense of confidence to put myself out there in a way that I would have never done otherwise. I just think there's definitely like a glass ceiling, tall poppy, all those like classic New Zealandisms. And as much as you don't want to be part of it, you kind of subconsciously feed into it, whether it's like you to other people or you to yourself. So moving away helps in that respect.
I have actually found it so hard starting this podcast to not tall poppy myself.
Yes.
Like, I have like constantly had to be like, why not me? Why not me? Why not me? Because the whole time that I've been like going through the motions of this, I've just been like, why do you think you know, this self-talk is crazy. And I didn't realize, like, I make a real conscious effort to not tall poppy other people because I just want to celebrate other people, but I didn't realize how much I still do it to myself until starting this.
Same. That's why, like, when you were reading it out, I was like, I'm actually like flabbergasted. I was like, I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience because you just don't think of yourself in that respect. Like, you always see the negatives. Like, I'm like, oh God, I'm sure there are people that I went to high school with or like that I know through some weird connection that send my videos and are like, oh, cringe. And I'm like, you know what? I am incredibly cringe. I've been cringe my whole life.
Yeah.
And I think that was also part of it with the baby names. Like, kind of loving baby names is kind of cringe, but I think we're in this like time where the fangirl girly pop is being celebrated, and I am so here for it. And
Agreed.
it's so mean to put down people for loving something. It's like, we don't mock sports fans. I mean, I do, like, to a certain degree. I'm like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what's the difference?
I
So
agree.
I was
And
on
it's so
TikTok.
gendered. It's like all
So
the thing that
gendered.
girls love is the cringe stuff, and all the thing that guys love is absolutely fine.
100%. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, we may all dress up as a Taylor Swift era and either be lucky enough to go to the tour, or maybe we all had babies that year, so we just had to watch it on Disney. And that's totally fine. But, like, you're wearing a sports jersey of the team you're watching play on TV right now. What's the difference?
There's that whole thing of like, if you're worried about being cringe, you're not having fun. Like,
Yes, yeah. And I think I spent so much of my youth like that. I had this conversation with people from my work the other day where we were talking about motherhood. And I was like, I remember thinking about this in my 20s and being like, I don't know when it happened in my teen years where I cared more about what other people thought about myself versus myself, and like what I like boys thought of me versus what I thought about myself. I was like, I'm not funny enough, I'm not pretty, I'm not mysterious enough, I'm not cool enough, I'm not like all these things. I remember I once got dumped as a child. Not a child, I was old enough to have a
I
boyfriend.
was like
But
9.
yeah, I was a child. My parents let me go out. No, we were like, God, Form 2, Form 3, something, still like a baby in my
Yeah.
eyes now. And I wanted to watch the rugby game. I love that I'm just been mocking sports fans, but I love rugby. And my boyfriend was angry at me because I actually watched the game. It's like, you're too sporty. Then it was like, it turned into, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. And then it started being like, I'm not a good enough mum. I'm not making enough meals. They're not getting enough vegetables.
Yeah.
Their sleep. I don't have an 8-step sleep routine for them.
Yeah.
So it's funny how much we kind of like zone in ourselves as the center of all issues. And you're like, but don't do it to anyone else. It's weird.
Yeah, it is. It is funny that like, and it obviously gets higher stakes as well, because suddenly you're like, oh, I'm not doing this well enough, and it's ruining my child.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, when you're younger, it's like, oh, I'm not pretty enough, and it means the boy doesn't like me. But when you're a mum, it's like, if you're doing all that negative self-talk, or you've got all that expectation on yourself, you're like, and I'm responsible for my child's life and well-being, and that is so hard.
Totally. Okay, sorry, to answer your question,
No, it's
I
fine.
was on TikTok and there were loads of American baby namers, and just like, America truly is the wild, wild west of like Black Mirror and just like insanity. And I love it. I've got friends that live there, I've got family that live there, I've been there, I love it. But it also just feels like this unreal reality. And I think that's reflected in their baby names a lot of the time. They're just like out there putting out some crazy names. And look, I think if I was born and bred in that society, maybe I'd be a little bit chaotic with my naming as well. But I just thought it didn't translate to a New Zealand frame of mind. And then there was an Australian journalist called Kristen Drysdale, and she named her baby Methamphetamine Rules. And
I saw this.
Yeah, because there's naming regulations. And I told 2 of my friends that I wanted to do this. They're my 2 friends that I tell them every stupid 2 a.m. business idea that I have. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. And they were like, just make the video. And honestly, that video is like, it's probably like 5 minutes long, which no one is going to TikTok for a lecture on one thing. But that was the catalyst. And then it just a lot faster and bigger than I anticipated, which is great. But I still don't get it. Like, people ask me, what's the secret to TikTok? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, no idea whatsoever.
You've just hit such a niche, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's like,
it's a random world.
It's random, but it's also like, names is something that every person becoming a parent is thinking about.
Yeah.
And thinking about in depth, and like, if you're me, like ruminating and spiraling about it.
Yeah.
And so having someone else to like go through the content and be like, man, they're thinking about it as much as I am.
Yeah.
Is so nice and reassuring.
I think it's like one of the few things that you actually have, I would say 70% of control over. There's always going to be that 30% of like compromise with your partner, family, if you care about that, like what their opinions are. But I think a lot of stuff when you become a parent, and that starts from the minute you probably decide to start trying, you just don't have a lot of control in a situation where you feel like you're owed control, which means like you almost feel like you're being cut twice because
Yeah.
there's just nothing that you can hold on to. Whereas a name, you're like, that's it. Like
That's so true.
this is my lifeline. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny.
That is so true. And actually, it's so funny now thinking about it. My pregnancy with Max was hard, like hyperemesis, scary brain scans, like a bunch of stuff all happening. And I obsessed over, like, got
Yeah.
obsessed about naming her. And now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, actually, it's probably because it was the only thing I felt like I could control in that time. So that's actually so interesting.
Yeah, it's like I think I worked that out. I had not great pregnancy, well, not terrible pregnancies. I don't think any pregnancy is like ever perfect. I think it was more so I got pregnant twice without trying in the
Yes.
right circumstances. Not at home, but with a partner, we discussed it. But I didn't want children. Like
At all.
I was 50-50. So I was more like, yeah, my parents struggled with fertility. So I was surrounded by it a lot growing up. My parents lost a child before me, and then between my brother and I, there were 4
I'm sorry.
miscarriages. No, yeah, I mean, it's weird because when you're that young, you don't really know. Like my brother is 1999 and I'm 91, but you just know something's not quite right. Like mum's pregnant and then she's not, or that sort of thing. And then it's also hard when, as you probably realize, becoming a parent, your parents are doing it for the first time as well. And it's like, I could not imagine the difficulty of doing that and staying together and keep doing that whilst having a kid that you have to look after. That I have been told I was quite a full-on child, which look, I'm not surprised by that whatsoever. But it's just like, I don't think anyone ever has it easy. Like, if you want to have a baby and then you have a baby, it's still difficult. If you don't want to have a baby and then you fall
You have a
pregnant,
baby.
personally, that was really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world, but that was my hard point, and then I latched on to naming
Yeah.
during it, and it kind of made sense to me. I was like, I get it. Like, it's the only thing that I feel like this is mine, even though the baby's mine. But, you know.
That's future you problems. And I guess if you're not necessarily excited about the idea of the baby, if you can find anything about that journey that you are excited about, like, you're going to latch onto that.
Yeah, I wasn't excited either time, which is like, and then I felt really sad about it, which is like the most hilarious classic thing ever. Because I wasn't into the pregnancy until I was like 80% through. And then it was like that friends moment where it's like, oh, I have to have the baby. Like, there's no way out. And my friends were like, you need to watch the movie Baby Done because that is you. I was like going to concerts, like going out on New Year's Eve with my friends to a bar. I looked like a walking safe sex ad to be like, this could be you in 9 months if you're silly.
Yeah.
And then I found out I was pregnant with Wynn, which also wasn't the plan. And then this is awful, but I found out I was having a boy. So then I was like, no, like, I think it's so much harder to raise boys. And I am so sick and tired of people telling me, no, boys are so easy, you just leave them to their own devices. And I was like, why do you think we have an epidemic with male culture? Like, you don't just leave a boy to fend for himself. He's still a child.
Yeah.
And they're all amazing in their own ways, but I don't think it's them. I think it's like the wider environment. Yeah, which is why I'm like, I'm really nervous to watch Adolescence. That's Easter's job.
Gosh, yeah, no, that actually like terrified me. I felt the same about having a boy. We didn't find out the sex either time for our kids.
You are a unicorn.
Look, I don't know. I don't know what it was. I think because first time round we struggled to get pregnant, and we were sort of like going through fertility stuff, and everything was so like sterile and medical, and there was no romance in it at all. That I just felt like if there's one thing that feels like this magic, lovely moment, I want it. And then I enjoyed it so much. Yeah, I enjoyed it so much the first time. I was like, second time round, yeah, why not? But then second time round, the birth was absolutely gnarly, and I was like hemorrhaging, and it was a whole thing. And I didn't know, like, I didn't ask. So for ages, she was on me, and was just like, no one knew and no one had said anything. And then like 5 minutes later, I was like, oh, what's the sex? And they were like, oh, you've had a girl.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Like, yeah. So first time it was like this beautiful moment where it was like, it's a boy, blah, blah, blah. And then the second time it was like, there was so much chaos going on that I was like,
God.
I don't even know. Girl, great, cool. Am I alive?
Fantastic.
Who knows? Yeah.
Oh my God, you poor thing. Birth is wild, isn't it? How...
Man, it's such a It
Yeah.
is a trip. I'm really glad I'm never doing it again.
Same, 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 same. Like that's like I'm sad I'm never gonna have a pregnancy I'm excited about. I was like, but of
Yeah.
course I'm making myself feel guilty for that. It's like who cares? You've had two
Yeah.
pregnancies, you got two healthy babies. I
And
definitely
you're
don't want a
excited
third.
about your kids, so it's fine.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. So it's fine.
They weren't conscious during the pregnancy, so it's fine.
No idea.
You're
So
good.
it's fine. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we've already touched on it, but the first question is like, tell me about your journey to becoming a parent. So
Yeah.
I guess if you want to do like a little bit more of an overview and we can.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's that classic thing when you grow up in New Zealand, there's these certain benchmarks that you have to hit. So I thought I always wanted kids. It's like
Mm,
go to uni, get a job, marry like someone you've known since childhood sort of situation, have babies, buy a house with a yard and get a dog. And
Yeah.
then I quickly realized whilst following that formula, I didn't really want any of it. So I moved overseas, met my partner, and then we kind of quickly knew that that was that. We
Yeah.
had conversations about having a family one day, and I was like, look, I'm actually pretty keen to stay here and not have kids. And he was like, I'm pretty keen to stay here, but I want to have kids. And then that was
Interesting.
just, yeah, he comes from this amazing, ginormous family. And that's great. Just something I never experienced.
Is he a
And
Kiwi, your partner?
he's a Kiwi. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that
So you went
classic
to
thing.
London and met the Kiwi. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Nice.
think I even kissed someone from Europe. I was just like, is there a Kiwi accent? And I was like, oh, perfect. And just like tunneled my way.
What a
Don't-
waste, Sonya.
I
What
know.
a waste.
I look back now and I'm like, it really was. I should have done
We
like
should have.
stamped my passport around Europe. I did nothing of the sort.
Get back on an OE. Get back over
Yeah.
there, Sonya.
Say yeah, bye kids.
We
Honestly,
can raise our kids and then in our 50s we can go on an OE together and like, you know, what happens in Europe stays in Europe sort of thing.
It's like a perfect Mamma Mia-esque, like, that would be a fantastic premise for a film, and I would love
Thank
that. 'Cause,
you.
like, it's my life. We decided to move home because he wanted to have kids, and well, not randomly, I pester him about it all the time, because I'm always like, do you ever just think that we could be in Ibiza this week and not be here?
Not here.
And they're, like, crying and pulling each other's hair, and he's like, not as much as you do. But it's that thing, like, we probably could have stayed for another 3 years, 5 years, and I think he would always want to have kids, so it would be that like we're constantly chasing a rabbit and it'd be hanging over our head. And then
Yeah.
with my parents' background, I always wanted, my mum had me at 35, so quite late in that day and age, that I always wanted to have children around that age. I don't know why. It's like some weird like psyche
You
thing.
could
where you're
just
like,
grow up seeing what your
What you-
parents do and you're like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I'll do that.
yeah, you're like,
Because I
that
did the
makes
same.
sense.
I did the same but young. My parents had me young and then I had my kids young.
Really?
So yeah.
See, my dad's a fair bit younger than my mum, so my dad had me. Oh my god, we're closer in age to having children. My dad was 27, I think, when he had me, which I'm like, you're a child bride, sir. But then I.
Do you want to hear like proper child bride? I got married at 21.
You're like my cousin, literal child
Actual
bride.
child, and then had Freddie at 25.
Wow! Oh my
Yeah.
god, I
Yeah.
was kissing Kiwis overseas at 25.
I
You
know.
know, could be
I know.
worse. You know,
But
it's not
do you
that
know that's
exciting.
like what I love about this is like there is just no right way to do it.
No.
Like you just do it the way that is coming down the pipeline at you and you're
Totally.
figuring it out and it all ends up in the wash, you know? Like
Totally. It's funny.
get
Like
there.
I think having my parents go through what they went through makes me really grateful for how easy it was for me, because I just didn't anticipate it to be easy whatsoever. And I have
Yeah.
always had these conversations with like my partner or whoever it is at the time to be like, if we don't have kids and like it's not possible, like would you be open to adopting? Would you like be, and they'd be like, yeah, sure. And I think it's really easy to say yeah, sure when it's like an arbitrary thought or you haven't had like a background, like a family history with it. But
Yeah.
I'm just very grateful that we were lucky. Like it was really hard because I didn't want to be pregnant at the time, which is also
Yeah.
something that I always am conscious about saying, because I'm like, my children might grow up one day and hear this, but I think it's also pretty valid to be like, you can like be in love with something and be so happy about it, but also not want it at the same
Yeah.
time. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's fine. So that's how I became a parent, and now I'm a mum of 2, and that is insanity. So
And what's the age gap between Odette and Win?
23 months. So that's
Woof.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. I found out I was pregnant on like just after Mother's Day weekend. So weird. I wasn't even due my period yet. but Odette for like the whole weekend kept doing downward facing dog, which is
Oh,
apparently an old wives' tale of you're looking for your sibling. Wynn does it all the time, but I'm like, there's no chance in hell because your dad went to the shop, so we're fine, sir.
like, this is nothing.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, old wives' tale down the drain because I'm clearly not pregnant. You're just annoying me.
And when you found out you were pregnant with Odette, were you in the UK or in New Zealand?
Yeah, I was in the UK. I had my friend's birthday that weekend at a winery.
No.
It could have been a lot bigger. I got home by midnight, so by London standards, that's essentially going home at
That's
9
nothing.
PM. Yeah, so I was very behaved, albeit I was like, oh, weirdly enough, but I am quite happy to not drink in situations. And I was like, oh, I'm not drinking. So loads of my friends were like, she's pregnant. And then lo and behold, it's a sunny day. I didn't know. I was like, lo and behold, it's a sunny day. I was like, get me a wine. And then they're like, oh, she's not pregnant. And then I don't know why I decided to take a pregnancy test. And pregnancy tests in the UK are like £3. So you constantly just have like a bunch of random ones in your bathroom. I was like, I'm just gonna take one. And we were leaving in 5 weeks or something to move back home. And I just took one, forgot I'd taken it, started watching Love Island. Love Island had like an ad for Superdrug, and I was like, oh my God, that pregnancy test. And I was like, I'm gonna go check it. And it sounded like someone got shot because I literally screamed, howled, messaged my best friend who lives in New York, and I was like, are you awake? I'm not going to check the time.
Yeah. I'm having a crisis and I need you right now.
I was like, this is not a drill. And I hysterically cried. I don't think I have cried like that since I like first got dumped as a teenager. Like I was like hysterical. I think just like leaving London has been my biggest heartbreak of my entire life, which is incredibly privileged because it's a very easy heartbreak to deal with. It's not.
I mean, leaving the place where you feel like most alive and at home
Yeah.
and fulfilled and joyful, I feel like that's quite a significant grief.
It is. It totally is, but it's like not a parent, not a grandparent, like
No,
not like a
but-
divorce, but or God, anything, God forbid. It's really hard, but it's definitely more manageable on the scale of like managing it. And I can go back once my mortgage isn't a noose around my neck. I can go back. It's fine. So I think it was leaving that, and then it was like another massive change, and I really didn't want to move home. It was just so many things that felt outside of my control that when I found out it was not a good day, and we had dinner plans that night, and I made Tyler catch the bus home instead of the tube. He was like, what is going on with you? Because I was like, I'm going to destroy this boy's life. Like we were going to Greece for 6 weeks, and then he was like, you're being so weird, and was getting so like snippy with me. He thought that I had done something because I was so like hysterical. He was like, oh my God, she's cheated on me. And I was literally this wreck. Well, I've just like been out at a winery all week, and he was like, she's just been silly. And I was like, okay, one, I wouldn't do that. So I'm pregnant, and I just started crying like that, and then he started crying, and I was like, oh my God, I've ruined his life, and he was crying tears of joy, and I was like,
he was stoked.
He was so happy, and I was like, I'm really glad you get to have this moment. And then it was quite funny because then when we found out we were pregnant again, I was like, oh, better than Odette, but it's not great. And he was like, this is not what we need. So I was like, okay, cool.
No.
I was like, this is nice. I was like, it's nice to not be that person in the relationship. But no, when he found out we were pregnant, he was so happy. But then we went to Greece for 6 weeks, and he got to drink and I got to vomit in beach clubs. So, I would be happy too if I was drinking strawberry daiquiris for 6 weeks.
It's really easy being the non-carrier.
It's really fun being the non-carrier. That's why I made it extra hard with my moods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I decided to get hyperemesis so that Andrew had to do all the parenting of the toddler. Yeah, that was my decision. Yes.
I was vomiting from like the minute I found out, more from fear, but I was all the way through birth with Odette. So that was
shocking.
Yeah, I've always had a penchant for, like, I'm a very nauseous person. Trigger warning, I had a eating disorder for like 10 years. So then that was like that mental thing of like, am I just sick again and not pregnant? Because when I was pregnant with Odette, we got paid for a private scan when she was 9 weeks because we were leaving the UK, and then we didn't get to see her till she was 17 weeks. So then because we were traveling, and then we were in MIQ for 2 weeks, and then I didn't realize it's hard to get a bloody ultrasound appointment here is getting like Glastonbury tickets. Like, why
Yeah.
is it so extreme?
During COVID, it really was as well. I don't know
Oh,
what that was about, but it was really hard during
it
COVID
was so
lockdowns.
hard. And then you're just like in this mental thing because it's your first time, you just have no idea. And I was like,
Mm.
I don't look, and because I was vomiting so much, I was like, I'm like skinnier than usual.
Yeah,
How is there a
losing weight.
baby in me? But
Yeah.
thankfully, she was fine. So that was
Oh,
good.
that's so good. So when did you or how did you during your pregnancy try to like frame it from I've ruined my life to like this is a good thing?
Honestly, it took like, I would say maybe when I'm 8 months pregnant, I just was not. I'm very good at putting a rug over things and just being like, whatever. And like, I didn't feel great the whole time. It was more of a mental thing. And I think that's what's really hard is it didn't have a physical manifestation or anything that people are like, oh, she's fine, she's enjoying this. And then I'd have to tell people, oh, I'm actually just like really struggling. And then you seem really ungrateful. I think I always wanted to protect her. I remember in Greece, and I'm just like irrational fear that we were just going to get robbed in our like hotel and held at gunpoint. And I would always just like go to bed like cradling my stomach. So I knew there was like this innate sense of wanting to protect her before I knew she was a her. But I think it was just trying to be really grateful for it. And I think it was thinking about my parents that really helped.
Yeah.
And obviously seeing Tyler be so happy. I think I was just dealing with a lot of different aspects of grief at that time, like loss of myself and then loss of
Mm,
going back to my childhood friendships. And that would have to change because I was the first in my group of friends to have a baby, which
mm,
really not for the weak of heart to be
hard.
the first. Yeah, especially when you're a hesitant parent to begin with. And I think I don't think I handled it well because I would overextend myself, say yes to a lot of things, and then I would just like let down not just my friends but myself as well. So it was really tough, and I think it was just like mental fortitude of kind of like telling myself day in day out like this is good. Like I'm with my partner, we want a family, we're home, this makes sense. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
rewiring my brain slightly,
Yeah.
which we got there. And now I'm like, I don't know a day where we haven't had tears since 2021, either from myself or the children. So,
A
you know,
child.
yeah,
Yeah, look, it changes. So
insanity.
what was like birth and those early days, like feeding, sleeping, all of that like for you?
I am incredibly lucky. Feeding was super easy. I know that it can be another, I get really pissed off about the whole like breast is best situation. It's like my kid is fed, get off my
Mm,
back, you know? Like
yeah.
I had a I think one of my friend's mums, or maybe it was my antenatal teacher who's actually one of my friend's mums. You don't line up kids and then stream them via like breastfed formula. And I have friends, I am so incredibly lucky because I was the first of my group of friends. There's 11 of us in my antenatal group. We all still talk to this day, every single day. Like,
Cute.
I'm so grateful for those moments. I get like quite teary thinking about them because so many of them struggled with breastfeeding. I think it's a really easy trap for new mums to fall into,
Yeah.
especially with like older generations. I know it comes from a place of love. I know it's just like boomer lingo, but even my mum is like, why aren't you breastfeeding anymore? And I'm like, oh, I don't know, mum, because I'm dried up at 6 months. Why is the sky blue? Like,
Because it's done.
yeah, things change. So super easy for me.
Hmm.
Birth was really fun. With Odette, I managed to stay at home just because you don't know what's going on the first time. Like,
Mm,
you're like, is this a bad curry? What's going on? Have I just got,
yeah.
I've always had a sensitive stomach. So I'm like, am I just like got cramps? And we were living with
Yeah.
my parents-in-laws at the moment. And my mother-in-law was like, you've still got like a week. You're fine. This isn't labor. And I was like, "Fuck, this isn't labor. Like, I'm
I'm
not going
having
to
a
be able to
terrible
deal. I
time.
was like, I'm not well. Like,
Yeah.
I've had a spoon of mashed potatoes and that is not how I eat. And she was like, just go to bed. Anyway, we got to the hospital and I was 8 centimeters. And they were like, are
Oh
you
my gosh.
mentally okay? And I was like, no. And it was too late for an epidural, but they gave me one
Yeah.
anyway, which was not great because as soon as they gave it to me, and Tyler was like, my guy was it's like shaking, and Tyler was like, this is not well. But it's funny
Stressful.
how like the minute you're told to be silent and still when you're in that much pain, it's crazy what your body can do. Because they were like,
That's amazing.
yeah, I just turned into a stone wall. I was like, give me the needle.
I need it.
I need it now. And it was great because I always said, if I was to have a baby growing up, I want to feel like I'm on the main stage of R&B. I don't want to know where I am. Like, I want to have no understanding of my physical body. And I didn't. I had no understanding. I couldn't feel contractions. I couldn't feel when to push. They had to tell me when to do anything. And then they had to get extra people and the umbilical cord was wrapped around her leg. So she'd come out a little bit and then swoop back
and
in.
then pull back.
Yeah. And she was getting distressed. I'm just like flying. And Tyler's like, I literally thought you were, he told me weeks and weeks later, he was like, I thought you were dying. And then I was like, oh, because you cried when Odette was born. He was like, I cried because I thought you were dying. He was like, you literally looked like you were dying. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. Brilliant. And I was like, so you'd miss me? And he was like, what? But I'm
So you do love me.
Yeah, so you really love me. But yeah, had an episiotomy. Poor boy saw that. He looked down at the wrong moment. Yeah. And then that was Odette. So I was not there. Recovering weirdly fine. Like,
Great.
just was sweet, which was lovely. And then it's that thing when it's your first, like, any single sound that they make, you think that they're dying. So you were just like on high alert. With Wynn, I was there for the birth to the very last.
To prison?
No drugs. Just because Odette went so quick and I got to the hospital at 5 centimetres and I was 4 centimetres dilated that morning and felt nothing. And my midwife was like, it's tonight, girl, because we'd been like saying it was going to be tonight for 2 weeks. And I was like, you're fucking lying to me.
Sure thing.
5 centimetres. I was like, give me the drugs. Got there. I was like her 3rd or 4th birth of the night. So she was an absolute weapon. She's the most amazing midwife anywhere in the North Shore area. Like Jodie Hick. She is. We still chat.
Yeah.
I love her. But yeah, I was there. I was like, give me the epidural. And she was like, you can do it. And I was like, she's like, you can do it. And I was like, okay. I did it. I don't know if I could do it, but I did it. And it was hard. It was really, really, really hard. Like, no harder than my first.
No, I had a friend who's just had her second. Her first, she got the epidural. The second, she didn't because she just wanted to see if she could do it. And she was like, I did it. I don't feel the need to do it again, but I did it, you know?
I don't think I would ever wish that upon anyone. Like, maybe like Donald Trump and Andrew Tate. I wish you could feel birth like every day for the rest of your life.
I sort of am like, I do wish that some of the like male health lawmakers could understand.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The sheer, like, and it always goes through my mind. I don't know why, but this is like my default thought. I'm like, women give birth in rice fields. Like, you can do it. Like, I don't even know if that's a true fact, but I'm like, women do this. Like, women can do this. Doesn't it crazy? I will never forget the ring of fire. I now understand that. And I remember, because I had to went early again. So with Odette, I started pushing at 8 centimetres. I started pushing at 8 with Wynn. And then, because Jodie actually was late for my birth, her mum delivered my first baby. Very sweet.
It's so nice.
Did you get an episiotomy this first time? I was like, yes. And she was like, do you want one again? I was like, yes. Like, go.
Get it out.
And they were like, oh, there's no anaesthetic in the room. So by the time the assistant ran to go get it, I had started pushing. So just like, yeah, very excited tearing open a present on Christmas, which was enjoyable. And to be honest, and then Jodie was getting annoyed with me because, oh my gosh, she hears this, but I was pushing when you shouldn't be pushing. So I was like, how does anyone stop? Like, there's...
I know. I experienced the same. So both times, my births were fast both times, and both times didn't have time for medication or anything like that. So, and both times it was like completely involuntary, like my body just like I didn't even realize I was pushing both times until they were like, you're pushing, you know. It's like, and I know that this is a really lucky experience to have, but I had no control over that. It was just happening. Like my body was doing it. I was not in control of it at all.
Totally. And do you feel because I always say I'm really disconnected from mind to body. Like, people almost have to tell me things are happening. I'm like, oh, okay, because I can like shut my brain off. And I feel like that was it with giving birth. It was really confusing because my brain could not understand why my body was doing it. Because it would be like, I just have to, and I'd be like trying to rationalize and be like, no, like I can't do this. And the body would just be like, no, we're going, like, go. Go. And then when my body would be like, we should rest now because they're not contracting, my mind was like, no, like, go, get out of the bowel. but I would say, and this is wild, getting stitched up was more painful than pushing my son out. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
it took twice as long. So
I found pushing not easy, but I think just like having something to do
yes,
is like
yes,
so much better than contractions, because
yes.
contractions are happening and you can't do anything about it. It's just happening and you're
You
like,
just don't
oh,
know
this
when
is
it's going to
awful.
end. Whereas, like, I
Yeah.
cannot physically push forever. You know, like, worst comes to
Yes.
worst, like, they'll either, like, they'll have to do something, like, I cannot be
Yeah.
pushing forever. So
We're
there
at
is,
the point where this baby is coming out one way or
totally,
another.
you're like,
Yeah,
I'm nearly
100%.
there. I'm nearly there.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
I'd say, like, contractions and then getting stitched up because you have no idea what's going on. You're like, it's just like
Yeah.
an endless marathon. And you're like, okay, when
Yeah.
can I get off this stupid ride? But yeah, that's why I'm like, no one wants to hear me talk about birth because I don't paint a pretty picture.
Yeah, and that's why I am not a super birth focused podcast, because
Yeah.
I feel like the reality of birth podcasts, which I do love podcasts, and I feel like there's a real place for them, but I think that so many births are not the like beautiful positive experience that get highlighted. And then again, I think it's really easy for first time parents to go into birth being like, okay, I've like visualized this, I've got my
Yeah.
plan, I've got my fairy lights, I've got all this stuff, which I'm like, yes, manifest your birth, prepare for your birth,
Yeah.
have all the knowledge. That's so good, but also like ultimately we have very little control over what
Yeah.
actually physically happens in our birth.
Totally.
And so yeah, that's why I'm like, as much as I love a good birth podcast, I'm also like, realistically, what are we setting people up for by only
honest,
sharing those like
yeah.
beautiful
To be honest, I
births?
think that's what helped me the most with being a reluctant pregnant person is I did not subscribe to any of that. I never listened to a birth story. I never, like, I did antenatal late. I was so late, so I shouldn't even have my mum group friends that I have because I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not listening to anything, and I've always been like that. I think I had a really tough childhood, but I'm always someone that am like, what's going to happen is going to happen. I just have to adapt to it. And it's been
Yeah.
really good because that's my default setting. Is like, I'm like, yeah, plan to fail to plan, whatever. I don't plan a lot. I used to be a massive planner and a lot of things didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, no one cares about that. The only thing
Yeah.
I did for my birth was I packed a bag, I made a drum and bass playlist. I didn't use anything from either because
Yeah.
nothing went to plan. But that was one thing my midwife was like, very chilled first time mum. And I'm like, well, the baby's coming out, you're the professional, I'm just there for the ride. As long as I'm alive, they're alive, we're good. Like, that was essentially my birth plan.
Yeah, same. Especially second time round.
Yeah.
Second time round, I was like, with hyperemesis and everything, I was just like so sick and tired. And I was like, look, baby's coming out. Someone
What
will
you need
pull
to
it
do.
out.
Exactly.
Someone will get it out. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. We'll get there. Everything will be great. And my midwife was like, oh my gosh, you are so checked out of this. And I was
Yeah.
like, yep, I'm done.
Yes. You're like, I'm over it. I'm over it, and it hasn't really begun yet. So
Yeah, that's the worst part is you're like so over it. And then you're like, and now I get to have to parent a newborn.
yes, with a toddler, which is
Yep.
enjoyable.
Oh my gosh,
Because
yeah.
what's the gap
Just
between your two?
2 years, 11 months, so almost 3 years.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, it's exactly the same age gap as my brother and I, and my brother's older and I'm younger. So it's like a very nice mirror of what I grew up with.
So lovely.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
is. It's
I
really
think
nice.
that's like one part, like becoming a parent, I've got so much more grace for my parents now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's especially having my daughter first. I'm like, oh, it's like what my mum would have had like with me. And it must be so weird for you having your two. I mean, like, this is what my parents had. It's just
Like exactly what they went through.
It's wild. And you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, it's hard at all points of the journey. And I love having more grace for my parents. And I hope maybe one day my children may have that for me if they decide to have kids. But it's also nice to be like, we're all drowning together. It's fun.
And I also like, I love having the insight of like, man, like this is how much they loved me. And like, this is what I was to be. Like, I love having that perspective of like, I just love seeing a little glimpse and then being able to talk to them and like being able to bond with them on that level is so lovely. Yeah, it's really nice. So the second question, and I like feel like I need to caveat this question now. I'm even thinking about rewording it a little bit. But the question is, what does gold standard parenting mean / look like to you? But my caveat to that is like, I understand that there's no such thing as gold standard parenting, but I know that people have like expectations on themselves of like what they're striving towards. And so that's what I'm asking rather than like, what is gold
Yeah.
standard?
I think my biggest thing for my children is that they get to be children and they get to be silly and they get to be loud and ask questions and kind of work out their own perspective and frame of mind. I mentioned it briefly, I had a really tough childhood. My dad has really intense mental health issues, which growing up as the only child and then coupled with their fertility issues and living in like a shroud of secrecy because I didn't know until I was old enough to work it out for myself what was going on.
Yeah.
And I had to grow up really quickly. And I totally understand now because seeing my parents, knowing what my parents have gone through, and then being a parent at the same time, like they're just going through this life the first time, like we all are, that or they're still that 7-year-old kid themselves. They still think they're 20 and they're still
Yeah.
carrying traumas with them from all those points in life whilst trying not to create a traumatic experience for a child, which obviously I have some of those. But I think the biggest part was that I didn't get to be a child. Like my parents loved me and gave me everything, but I also had to be an emotional support for both of them, which was really difficult when there wasn't anyone else sometimes for me, especially being an only kid. I got quite good at being by myself, which I think has all worked in its favor. Like I'm quite resilient now and I am quite emotionally aware. Funny, like everyone says how much my daughter is like me, but like amped up, like unfiltered, just she is so silly, so confident. And I said to my partner, I was like, I wonder what I would have been like if I didn't have parents that told me not to be silly, or I didn't have to keep family secrets, or if I didn't have to not be a kid at certain points. And it's not through the fault of my parents, but that's just the way the cookie crumbled. And I feel like a lot of responsibility to make sure that she doesn't feel like she has to dim or keep secrets or like lock parts of herself away for the sanity of others. Like she's difficult. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm like, if she's difficult for me, she's gonna be difficult for the world, and I feel like the world needs more difficult women because
Absolutely.
like the perspective shift needs to be on that. So I think my key thing is like, let them be kids. I mean, just because they're kids doesn't mean that their emotions are any less valid or important or should be respected. I think it's just like meeting your kids where they are and realizing that they're not going to fit a 20 chapter how to parent book. Like no one knows your kid better than you know them. Also, you will learn about yourself as well. I don't know everything. They're likely going to teach me a lot. How I parent is not always right. And I think it's about being quite humble and ready to be humbled in that scenario. Like I get served on a daily basis, so that is fine. But I'm just not
Nothing
going
like
to.
some humble pie from your
Yeah,
kids.
I just don't want to shrink them ever. So that's probably my idea of how I hope I parent.
How do you do you have any practical ways or ways that you apply in your life that you foster them to be themselves and to actively not dim that light?
Yeah, I guess it's just letting them play and like going with them as well. I will like praise her when she's being silly. She is someone that loves positive feedback. So if I like clap or smile at her, she'll do it again like 20 times until the joke is no longer funny, which is fine. But I'm like, she gets enjoyment out of that. I think it's just asking them what they want to do as well is a lot of it. I'm always like, what do you feel like doing today? What makes you feel safe? What makes you happy?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm such a wing it and see kind of parent
Yeah.
that there's probably stuff that I do that I don't realize that I do, but it's all just like, just get on
Trust
with
your
it.
instincts.
Yeah, which is such a lame thing to say. With my kids, I think it's the one time where I trust my instincts and actually can recognize them.
Cool. That's so nice. And I think quite important, I think especially because we get so much messaging about what we should be doing and it should be like this and there's the 8-step sleep program and blah, blah, blah. There's all this stuff. And so I think I've found this having my second now, finding space to say to yourself, I'm doing this well. I did that well. I parented that well. I had fun with my kids. Actually being able to take those tiny little moments, that snatch them when they happen and be like, yes, I did a good job there.
Totally.
It's the only way to get through it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's also I have Win on Mondays now, and I find it really tough because that's when I would do 90% of my baby naming stuff. So I'm with him, and I'm like, this is the smallest he's ever going to be. And
Mm,
I feel like I'm actually probably doing more practical things for myself to be a better parent rather than doing things for my kids. Like it's more making sure that I show up. Like Odette does deep breaths now because both my kids have got firecracker tempers,
yeah.
which don't know where that comes
Wonder where
from.
they got
That's
that
fine.
from. I love that you touch on like finding things for yourself, because I feel like so often in the big scheme of like making sure everything is perfect for our children, the easy thing to sacrifice is like the bits that ground you in your life and your day. And then you're just like walking around in this like heightened state with all your stuff just like floating around the top of your brain. And it's really hard to like pull yourself back down to earth. So,
Totally. And like that stuff in the head when there's like, and you'll understand this, 1,000 different plates spinning and ones
yeah.
where people are demanding a fair bit of your time. It is,
Mm,
I think it's funny. It's definitely how I have like a coping mechanism where I will overflow my plate. So it's like not just one thing is falling, the whole tower is falling. And it's like, then I
yeah.
don't feel as responsible. I explained this to my partner because someone at his work, he was like, this is what's happening at work. And I was like, they do what I do. And they like
Yeah.
stretch themselves really thin. And then it's like an excuse for this is why
Yeah.
things aren't happening. But I've gotten very good at actually meeting all of the stressy voices in my head, which is nice. But also, I am so much more keen on making myself the most present, regulated type of parent and kind of just
Yeah.
like accepting myself as a parent. I'm not going to be the perfect whatever Charlotte York mum, you know?
So then if we go on to the third question, which is what is something about your parenting style that feels unique to you?
Honestly, read nothing, do nothing. Like, just, nah, it's honestly show up to the party, see how it goes. I'm the most annoying person with this. Also, I think the village, your village, however that looks, whether that's online, in person, family, friends, colleagues, bloody lean on them. Like,
Yeah.
and know what your strengths are and don't
Mm,
try be everything to everyone. So I think it's really helpful in terms of having my mum group. Some of them are so type A and I love them for it because then I get the spark notes. Like I can
yes.
ask the question, whereas someone will ask me where to go for dinner and I can tell them recommendations. Like know who you are and let people be that person is kind of how I go. So I feel like my style of parenting and what is unique to it is the fact that I don't do anything. Like,
Yeah.
I just show up. And I think that is probably the first step for a lot of people is showing up.
Mm,
But I just will be like, we're going to adapt to whatever it is. And sometimes that works and
yeah.
sometimes it doesn't. I've definitely forgotten my kids' like lunchbox on occasion to a play date. But then I'll be going to a play date with a mum that hacks way too much food for her kids. So, it like
Exactly.
it always balances out. So I'm very chill in that respect, unfortunately.
Yeah. But I guess it's like you say it in such a blasé way, but you have trust in yourself. And I think that
Yeah.
is like actually something that's really hard to do as a parent, is to like trust that it will figure itself out and that you have done enough that your kids will be okay, and like
Yeah.
rely on the knowledge that you have and know that you're prepared. Like, I think that even though you're like, don't show up, don't do anything, I think you're like, actually, that's a really amazing skill that you have of like being
Yeah.
able to trust and know and like believe in yourself and your ability as a parent and like the life you've set up for yourselves and you and your partner's relationship, that like you don't need to pre-plan everything because you know that it's going to end up okay. I think that's like that is actually quite unique to be able to do that.
It's so nice. Like, when you're in it and it's so easy for you to just like downplay any of
Yeah.
it or just like not see the wood through the trees. Like it's so nice
Yeah.
to be like, oh no, it's because you trust yourself. And like that is the thing, like I totally trust like I love my family, I love my partner, and I trust that that is there. Like that we've got such a solid emotional base that I feel like everything else will be okay. And I think maybe perhaps that's what I didn't have growing up. And that's why I thought of like everything that could go wrong in any given situation, like was so type A because I had to be like, where's the exit route? How am I safe? Like, what do I
Yeah.
need? Like,
Yeah.
and I worked really hard on that. Like, I would say, because I went through this period when I moved home and I felt like I had nothing going for myself. I wasn't in the city that
Mm,
I loved because of my relationship, but I always felt like my crowning achievement were my relationships. And I think in this day and age, everyone says that's wonderful, but it's like not really something you put on your LinkedIn, you know? Like, I feel like we're a
Yeah.
society where we're more driven about what we do,
Yeah.
versus then, like, what our other aspects of our life is funny. It's like that, what I watched White Lotus finale last night, it's like that Carrie Coon thing, and
So
it's
good.
that monologue, incredible. But I was
I
like, that's
just
how I
sobbed
felt.
during that moment that,
Oh,
like, I'm just happy to be at the table. Like, I
that
just
line with
yeah.
like, she has to win the Emmy for that, because that was just like a
Oh my gosh, I know.
masterclass in so many women. It's so funny because I think that's actually one of the hardest things to come to terms with, is like, I'm actually just happy to be here, and you don't realize how full your life is. And I
Yeah.
would not accept that my relationships were my crowning achievement, because I felt like that was outside of me. And then my friends
Yeah.
were like, but they're because of you. Like, your
Yeah.
relationships start with you. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but they just happened to me. And they're like, no, you idiot. And I
Yeah.
was like, what? Which is like what
Yeah.
you just said, because it's, you don't think of yourself as a key part of anything
Yeah.
like that. Because like, it's not my career. It's not like my sporting achievement, or I'm like really
Mm.
clever or anything. It's like, it's just who I'm friends with. But that's actually impossible.
Yeah, I had a therapist once who, when I was like talking to her, I was like, oh, I'm just not a career driven person. Like,
Yeah.
I just like, I like my job. I really am happy that I've trained to be a social worker, but I'm not like driven by upward motion, and I'm not aspiring to be a manager, and I'm not desperate to be, like all of this stuff. And I was like, I just feel like I don't have any ambition. And she was like, are you joking? Like,
Yeah.
have you thought about all the work and the time and the effort that you've put into all the relationships and friendships and the way you show up for people? Like, it took someone else being like,
Yeah.
that is what you're driven. You were driven by connection. And I was
Yeah.
like, it just didn't even feel like a valid
Totally.
like life like driver. And now I'm like, of course it is. Like,
Yeah.
that is what fulfills me, is like my relationship with friends and people, and like making connections with people on the internet, and like, like all that kind of stuff. And I just like, for so long, that wasn't even, I was just like, oh, I just have no ambition, or like, I just
Totally.
am not productive at all. It was so easy to dismiss that.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I feel like it's because valuing connection is such a female thing
Yeah,
that it has been
100%.
completely like shredded, torn apart. We've been isolated, taken away from groups.
Mhm.
And I think it's because we're dangerous when we're together, and like in the
Yeah.
best way possible. And I think people have not, you can't like commercialize it to the way, and
Connection.
yeah, in capitalism,
Yeah.
and now that's all brands are trying to do. And I'm like, oh, how the tables have turned, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've worked hard at that, and I'm happy that that's kind of laid the foundation for other things. So hopefully it's good for my kids. So like,
How It sounds like you and Tyler have a very solid relationship.
yeah.
Is there any ways that you have consciously maintained that in the chaos of having really young children?
Yeah, I guess like we're really, really lucky where we both have both sets of our parents, really involved families, and we do get a lot of time without our kids as well. We just spend time together, which is really nice. And communication with me is really key. Sometimes it's also just meeting where you need to be for the other person. I know it's that whole Brene Brown thing of like, what percentage are you at? And
Yeah.
there was definitely a period last year where I was like a 0% parent, because I had a
Yeah.
knee reconstruction. So Tyler had to step up, and then he was burnt out. And now I'm back to being like, I would say we are literally 50-50 in terms of parenting.
Cool.
But it's also
Yeah.
like, I remember one of my friends was like, oh, you would not survive my partner. And I was like, he wouldn't survive me, because I
Yeah.
would tell him what I need. And yeah, cool. Maybe I'm a ball buster. That's fine. Like, have a parent big enough for me to bust. Like, you have got to
Yeah.
show up. Like, I'm not one. My partner wanted to have children. I didn't want to have children. I wanted to have children with him, but I was very happy to not. So it's like, if you want to do this, show up.
You show
Like,
up.
yeah. And he gets really frustrated. He works with so many men, and they will say things to him about their kids, and he's like, how much time do you spend with them? And they're like the week.
Yeah.
I see them the weekend. And I'm like, you live with them. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
They don't do bedtime. They don't do bath time. Like, Tyler and I do a 50-50 split. Like, I do dinner, he does bath. Like, I do one bedtime, he does the other bedtime. Like,
Yeah.
there's such a strong division of labor. And yes, I will always do more of the emotional, invisible,
Mental
like,
load.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
tell him I'm very vocal about it. If you
Yeah.
haven't noticed from our very long chat, I'll tell him what I need. And that's it. Like, I've really got the emotional labor of being inside my own head. Then I've got the
Yeah.
emotional weight of like my parents, and then my family and our family.
Yeah.
You are an incredibly capable human.
Yeah.
And like, I just give him the respect of he is incredibly capable. I don't
Yeah.
actually have to be your mother, so
Yeah.
be my partner. That's it. It's just
Yeah.
like a bottom line thing, and probably the one place where I'm very, very direct.
That direction is like the benefit and the function of your family.
Yeah.
And so if that's going to make family life easier and like make a more stable, well-functioning running household, like
Yeah.
that's a good place to be direct. And hopefully, theoretically, this is what my husband does. You tell him once and then he takes the initiative the next time and you're like, great, cool.
Yeah, I mean, he does. Yeah, he is very switched on.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which is, what has your biggest what the was that moment been since you became a parent?
God, we're in our why phase. So she just asks why about everything. But honestly, I think it is less to do with my kids and more to do with the absolute sheer amount of like, holy hell kind of love that you feel for them, which I just did not anticipate. But also feeling extreme emotions at the same time, feeling like the depths of grief for myself, and then just like the most insane aesthetic like of highs of love for my kids, which is wonderful, but you're like, holy hell. And it not even
It's
in
really strange holding those two things in your head.
Yes,
Yeah.
and like letting them coexist with one another without like guilt or fear, and just being like, oh, okay, this is just probably what a lot of people deal with. And I never got baby blues, but I think I got pretty blue late postpartum, and I think that was when people drop out, your friends' lives resume, and understandably
Yeah.
and rightfully so. And then you're just like, oh, my life is different, and
Yeah.
I really struggled with that. Like, I was so intent on being like, no, I can be the fun mom. And then I just burnt out with Odette. And then with Wynn, I was like, no, here are my boundaries. This is it. And it was so nice. Like, I would say I grieved far less with Wynn. I think I weirdly grieved that this would be my last pregnancy and baby, which I
Wow.
did not anticipate because I hate being pregnant. I mean, weirdly, and I hate how much of a cliche this is, but I've never felt better or more beautiful than when I was pregnant. Like, I was just like,
Wow.
everything's in proportion. Like, which
Yeah.
it's not. But I
Yeah.
was like, I look fantastic.
And it is kind of nice to just be like, I don't have to think about sucking in my tummy.
Not
And
wearing a
as I
bikini.
as I grow, people are like, you look amazing. You know, it's like the one time where you get big and people are like, you're so beautiful. Like, that's
And you're like,
crazy.
I am. Like,
Yeah.
and also being able to eat McDonald's and KFC for lunch during the week. You're like, what is this? Like,
And
best
people being
time.
like, those cravings. And you're like,
Yeah.
my cravings.
It's like, no, I'm just treating myself. But I think that has been my biggest what the fuck moment, is like how many big emotions are just within myself.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just pressure. It's like, and this is what I think about like our generation of parents. We are so worried about doing it right and thinking about like what to do. And it's like, the fact that we're asking the question means we are. Like, we're there. We're wanting the best for them. Like, don't think any of us give us nearly as much credit as we deserve, because we probably still all feel like we're 19-year-olds and we don't know how to make a decision for ourselves. But
Yeah.
and I mean, one other what the fuck moment is that I now can call people on the telephone, which it took me.
Yeah, that is wild, eh?
Like, I can speak on a phone in an office, in an open plan office, and I'm like, look at this girl. Like, where was this skill when I needed it? But that's probably the biggest life change I've had, aside from not having my own autonomy. I can
Who
speak on
says
the
that
phone.
kids don't make you feel better?
I know. Hey, confidence in space.
Exactly. That's so interesting. Now, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about before we go into the fifth and final question is we, in our email exchange, talked about Chapel Roan's comments.
Yes.
Which I don't know when this episode is going to come out, so it might feel like it was a few weeks ago in the zeitgeist when people are listening to this. But recently, Chapel Roan went on the Call Her Daddy podcast and spoke about how she never wants to have kids, and she made some like quite inflammatory comments that really got a big reaction from mums on the internet. About, she was talking about how she doesn't know any parents who are happy and like the light's gone out of their eyes and they don't sleep and blah blah blah. And she just made like quite a big like sweeping controversial statements about motherhood, and there was a really big reaction online from mums being like very offended and very like taken aback by that. And you said that you agreed with her comments to some extent, or like you made some comment that I was like, oh, I really want to ask about that. So the floor is yours, Sonya. Tell me.
Yeah, I think honestly, ones on the internet, please don't come for me, but they are a scary
Yes.
horde of people to piss off. And specifically in America, I think because it is such a murky cash cow. And I think you cannot ignore the fact of that with all the documentaries coming out of they want to project this whole like, I'm a mum, it's the only thing I've wanted to be, here are my kids, like, that in that respect also I think the light has gone out of their lives because it's a manufactured light where it's like,
Yeah.
what is the behind the scenes to that? What is
Yeah.
it like that isn't. But in my respect, yeah, a different light is in my eyes. There is also a very tired, dragged light in my eyes.
Yeah.
But I was also
Yeah.
tired at different aspects, but it is hell. And I think it harps back to me saying like you'll learn to kind of juggle all these different emotions at once and letting them to coexist. Yes, I am in hell sometimes. Yes, I absolutely love being in this burning building and will get my
Yeah.
children out. It's hard. Like, I don't think enough people talk about how difficult motherhood is. And
Yeah.
like, my mum has said some like incredibly heart wrenching things to me that she experienced as a mum. Like, my mum's a Filipino immigrant, had 5 miscarriages. One was when she was dropping me off to school and she was in the car and she knew the drill by that point and she just kept driving. And she was like, I don't even know where I ended up. And then I just was driving for an hour and I was like, that is hell. Because then she's,
That is hell.
yeah, and you're alone. And I think that's the
Yeah.
other thing. Like, we're really lucky. And I don't, it's this other thing of like, I'm child free, I'm a mother. Like, we don't need to be in these weird divisions. Like, I get jealous of the child free influencers. I also sometimes
Same.
do feel attacked by some of the lingo, but I
Same.
can totally understand how they also feel attacked because we shouldn't just have to be, I'm mother, I'm this, I'm that. Like, they're not my whole life. Sometimes I hate my children, but I love them. I love them. Like,
And I also, like, I feel like with these, like, two camps of child-free and having kids and, like, all this stuff, I feel like both sets of people are trying to be like, I know true joy. No, I know true joy. And you'll never experience true joy. And you'll never. And it's like, how about we just
experience
all
what we're
agree that we're
experiencing.
making the right decision for ourselves and we're going to
Totally.
experience life in all of its beautiful like
Totally.
aspects and facets and with the decisions that we've made.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, I also think Chapel Rowan's a really easy person to come for
Yeah.
on the internet,
Yeah,
and
I
I've got
agree.
so much respect for her. She's always in a right to have an opinion about it, even if it's inflammatory. Like, people have
Yeah.
said worse things. People have said worse
Yeah.
things that week that she said stuff, and we
Yeah.
don't come for them. So I'm like, it's so
Yeah.
much easier to like tear down a woman who is not prescribing to the homemaker thing, or just like showing it for what it is. Like, it's always been hard. Now there's just more of us saying that it is hard and like coming
Yeah.
together because of it. And also now there's just like the whole trad wife mom thing.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
I think that's scarier. Like, I think that
Yeah.
is eons
I agree.
scarier than like there's a reason my kids are never on my TikTok. Like, it's really hard to operate in the area of the internet that I operate in and not put my kids up because it's like I understand like they would probably get more engagement. It's like my kids aren't for engagement. Like,
Yeah.
does 1,000 funny things a day. She's obsessed with Charlie XCX. She is like a Gen Alpha brat. She's a little
Hot Brat Summer.
She
Get
is-
it, Odette.
I was crying at Von Dutch in Laneway because it was Odette's favourite song at the time. And I was like, people must think I am like catatonic or something because I was just like, oh my
Like,
God. Like,
I'm just like really touched by this song.
it's like, it's not a Daryl Hunt, it's Von Dutch. And I'm just like,
I
oh my God, my
love
3-year-old. She's obsessed with
I
it.
love
Like,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's outrageous. But I'm like, I'm never going to put you on the internet in that respect because you are like, that's something with TikTok that scares me is the amount of saves on that. And that's,
Yeah.
and I think that part of motherhood is hell. I think that is hell. That
Terrifying.
is terrifying. It's nowhere near. That's like what Chapel said, tip of the iceberg. Like, deal with it.
I think like I've seen a lot of people talking about this. Like PhD Mama did a really good chat on it where she was just like, the kids aren't hell, but parenting in this context at this moment in this society is fucking hard. Like so hard.
Yeah, it
And
is.
that I can understand why people look at parents parenting now and see shows like Adolescence and see all the discussion about having kids online and like all these decisions that you need to make on this like huge macro level and all this information you need to hold in your head and go, man, I just don't want anything to do with it. I can so understand that.
I say to Tyler, more often than I should. I was like, I love my children. I hate being a parent. I was like, because it is like, it's so hard. I think because
Yeah.
there's so much opportunity to get it wrong or like think
Yeah.
that you're getting it wrong. It's obviously it's the next generation. I think that's why I take like I'm not that I'm saying that I'm going to raise. Well, I am going to raise them differently. They're two different people, but I do feel an innate sense of pressure raising a boy in this society because they
Yep.
are one of the biggest killers of women under 30,
Yeah. Yeah.
young men. Like I shouldn't have to put shorts on under my daughter's dress when she goes out, but that is literally the society we live in.
That's
I was
where
like,
we're in.
that's
Yeah.
terrifying as a parent.
Yeah.
It's a really scary landscape. And I think because we are like, they're obviously digital native, but we were at that like precipice of like, well, God, yes, this is fun. And then the internet that know how dark it can be, you just know how bad it can be.
So then how do you hold those two things in your head? Like, how are you balancing the idea of like, I'm actually terrified to be raising children and being a parent is really scary, but also weighing it with the like joy and love and all the good things? Like, how are you keeping equilibrium? Because I feel like if you didn't, you would just be like bed rotting.
Yeah. Ugh, I mean, it would be so nice to bed rot. Honestly, it's just like little, I think if I can be sane, then I'll be okay. So it's just like knowing little things for me that will help me, whether
Yeah.
it's like going for a walk. Honestly, my things is like I walk, I read. That's it. Those are the two
Yeah.
things where I'm like, if I can get a couple of those in a week, I will be fine. Like I read every day,
Yeah.
but that always helps. But I just, again, it's like coming back to your support system. If I'm not feeling a little bit great, sometimes it's just like venting out the voices in your head so that they aren't bigger than they are. And I think
Yeah.
that's really helpful with my mum group. And then now my friends that have had babies, albeit they're at a different stage. So you also want to be really careful of like,
Yeah, you don't want to overload them.
yeah, of like
Yeah.
first time mums when they're going through like super unique, challenging experiences
Yeah.
because you don't
Yeah.
want to be like, the world is burning.
Yeah, and you're like, hey guys, I'm thinking about global warming right now. And they're like,
Yes.
I'm just trying to learn how to breastfeed.
Yeah, and you're like, our children won't have oxygen. And they're like, please stop this. So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I just have to think about what's happening now
Yeah.
and what, like, go 2 steps from there. Just be like, okay, just get
Yeah.
like little tiny steps. And someone that will always look at the big picture towards the end. And it's like, sometimes that's debilitating because if you do that,
Yeah.
it always feels unreachable. So I've always
Yeah.
been like, okay, break it down. What can I control
Yeah.
now? Let go of what I can't and start there. So it's like just
Yeah.
small things.
Yeah, I'm the same. I try and like find the good things that are happening in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
if that's my son saying the word GABA instead of gala, I'm like, that's
Amazing.
the best thing I've ever heard. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the best thing ever.
And I'm
You
also
know?
like, I've always said, because I remember maybe like 5 or 8 years ago, there was this real thing of people choosing not to have children. And then
Yeah.
I was like worried because I was like, if all the people that are so concerned about the environment and society aren't having children, who are we populating the earth with?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
which is another scary thought because you're like, oh, because you see those like debates of conservative American kids against like
Yeah.
Democratic kids, and you're like, it starts very young. These like
Yes.
terrifying thoughts that you're like, we just can't have one school of thought in a society.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I had 2 babies, and hopefully they've got minds wide open.
Yeah, that's like Andrew and I were like, we've replaced ourselves. We will
Yes.
instill them with
Yeah.
all the good and the kind and the humane and the all of those things, and we will hope that, you know, like all we can do is hope that we've equipped them with enough to keep things going and positive and happy and not turning into an absolute dumpster fire of
Exactly.
hellscape.
Little things.
Exactly. But it's just like sometimes you just have to like pull yourself out of it because you're like, if I fall down that,
Yeah.
then I'm just gonna like lose my mind.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be helpful for anyone.
Totally. I used to get quite nihilistic when I'm not feeling well. I
Yeah.
can just be like, what's the point of everything? And then I
Yeah.
think it's so weird. I actually think, so I got diagnosed with depression when I was in high school and then had an eating disorder. Obviously, my dad has his history. I think
Yeah.
having awareness of those things has actually helped my resilience in dealing with my kids because it's also like,
Yeah.
oh, I know that like, even though they may not think or feel in a way that you want them to, doesn't make it wrong. It's just something you've got to work through, and you're like, oh, okay, sometimes the wheels fall off, and I know how to find my way back, whether that's like doing things myself, taking small steps, or like leaning on people that I trust. And
Yeah.
I think that's helpful with my kids now, because I
Yeah.
can be like, well, I could just bed rot and be nihilistic and be like, it's all worth nothing, like blah blah blah. But I'm like, it's actually all going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if not, we'll just deal with that when it's not, and then see
Yeah,
where we
cross
go.
that bridge when we get there.
Exactly.
But I also do feel like, because I'm the same, I can be quite pessimistic and quite nihilistic, especially if my mental health isn't good. And I do feel like kids are sometimes, as much as they can be really stressful, I think they can also be great protective factors, because they like, you look at them and you're like, it's hard to not feel hope when like there's just this like perfect little pure good human in front of you.
Yes.
That is like, you're like, you are nothing but inherently good, even though you're cheeky and tricky and you have tantrums. It's like you are a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think like having that in front of you is sometimes just like exactly what you
Totally.
need to like pull yourself back out of it, which is really cool.
Yeah, get out of your own head.
All right. The final question.
We
We've made it to the
made it!
end. Only 40 minutes over what I thought it was going to be.
Let's see where we
But we're
end
both
up, eh?
yappers, so it's
I
fine.
know, God.
If you were listening to this podcast the day you became a parent, what would you want yourself to hear?
My word, I actually read this question so many times, because as soon as I had one, I wanted to like hug myself as that first time mum and just be like, you are doing great. You're doing everything that you need to do. Go easy on yourself and give yourself grace. Like, I think having a daughter first has been a really healing inner child thing, and also like healing with my parents.
Yeah.
Becoming a second time mum was quite healing for me as a first time mum. I think having a baby is one of the most joyful, cosmic, insane experiences ever, and you're doing everything that you need to do. Also, no one knows your child better than you know them, and you've just met them. A book does not know, Plunkett does not know, you know. Your mother-in-law, your mum, that you know. Like, it's crazy, and you're also meeting yourself as a mum. So
Yeah.
just let go of what you think you should be doing and go super easy on yourself. It's funny, me and my mum friends, who a lot of them are second time mums now, we've all shared a similar sentiment where we're just like, we were such good mums the first time round. And
That's
I'm
so nice.
so grateful for them, because we always tell each other how good of a mum we are. But I just think every first time mum, like, you're still doing the best possible thing that you're doing, because you're just doing it. Like, it's so hard to get up, have a shower, get dressed, and feel the weight of looking after a tiny new human. Like my longest friend, best friend, has just celebrated her baby's first birthday, and I sent her a like, happy first year to you, because it's the day that you became a mum, which is like as crazy as pushing or having a C-section or adopting, getting a child. Like, it's as crazy. And I was just like, I just take a moment to realize like how amazing you've done. And she was like, this is wild. And I was like, well, no one tells you you're doing a good job, and you do a great job. So I think that's what I would have liked to hear, is that it's all going to be fine. You're going to be stronger for it, and give yourself grace.
I feel like that's such a nice, not challenge, but like almost a reminder for us as like people who are parenting in villages with other parents to like tell other parents that they're doing a good job, because we're not telling it to ourselves, and society is certainly not telling it to us.
No.
So if you're listening to this today, message someone who you're parenting alongside and let them know they're doing a good job, because they probably are. Yeah. Anyway, Sonya, thank you.
Made it!
We made it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming on this. It was like such a joy to have you, and such a rewarding chat. And I just am so glad you agreed to it, because
Oh my God.
you're just throwing great stuff out there just for me to sit and enjoy. And I do
hope
have one
so.
final question for you, actually. If you were naming a boy today and a girl today, what would you name them?
I mean, I've said this, okay, I've got to give a different answer, because obviously if you have been on my Ask Anything, what I wanted to call Odette is Pandora. What I wanted to call Win was Darcy, and I think Pandora and Darcy are perfect together, but I'm going to change it. If like my favorite girl name at the moment is Imogen,
Yeah.
And then boy, I love Imogen and Baxter together. I feel like that's where I would go.
Baxter.
I think Baxter is
Yeah.
so cool. I
Yeah.
just think it's great. I mean, I'm not sold on Bax, but I'm like, Wheatbacks. That could be his cute nickname.
Wheat-
I get asked 24/7, but I'm like, Baxter and Imogen, cool kids.
Imogen and Baxter. Okay. My name that I was desperate to call our son that was never going to fly with my husband was Buddy, because I think that Buddy is like
Buddy
just
the
so
Elf.
cool.
We
Buddy the
call,
Elf.
yeah,
And
we call Win Buddy, funnily enough. That's his nickname. Yeah.
that's
yeah.
really nice. And also, I'm just like, Buddy Harrison
Yeah.
absolutely is like a folk singer, or like just
Yes.
someone, an art indie director. Just that's a cool person.
What's
Yeah, so
your
Buddy.
name?
And I loved Celeste.
Same. How good is Celeste?
I loved Celeste. I love and also Josie was our other girl's name for Max, but she's so not a Josie. But yeah, Celeste, I feel like Esty as a nickname,
Yeah.
Cece, lots of like really cool.
I know.
Yeah.
When I mourn Win's girl names. One was going to be Augusta, which a girl from my high school then was like, I got the idea from you. And I was like, I'm so glad there's one in the world. And then
Yes.
his other name, there were two names, and Tyler was like, you would really have to like twist my arm on them. And I was like, I would have. Was a double barrel, Claude Constance, and then going by Cece. How good.
Yeah,
I
really
know.
good. Really good.
on a
I love Claude for
girl.
a boy too.
I know. Tyler was like, absolutely not. And I was like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
Win's
just
good.
like, yeah, Win's great. Win
Win's
is
great.
lovely.
That's his doing. Well, I gave him the name, but and that's where I was like, sir, have you been watching my videos? Which I do not let him, I don't film with him in the house. Like, I'm like, no, I'm so embarrassed. And
Yeah.
he was like, why do you want Darcy? And I was like, it sounds nice. I was like, why do you want Win? And he was like, it feels like a modern update of Ian. I was like, I just got played. And I was like, and that's his granddad's name, who he adored. And I was like, oh, well, guess his
so he
name's
really
Win.
won.
He won. Yeah, fair and square.
It's perfect. Odette and Win is like the perfect combo.
Yeah, it's quite nice. Yeah, I love them.
Why do you parent like that?
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Why Do You Parent Like That? Why Do You Parent Like That is a podcast created and hosted by me, Abby Harrison. A big shout out to my nephew Thomas and my niece Frances for lending their voices to my jingle, and to everyone who is helping me with their expertise on podcasting while I figured this out. Any resources mentioned in today's pod will be linked in the show notes alongside our sponsors. Please follow Why Do You Parent Like That on your podcast platform of choice, and follow us on our TikTok and Instagram at Why Do You Parent Like That podcast for more behind the scenes and reveals of upcoming guests. If you have a story you think would be great to share, please send me an email at whydoyouparentlikeThatpodcast@gmail.com. Love you. Say it back.